Our next person is going to be Howard Westley, brother of Ira. I think I got it right this time. A man of many talents. Howard is a pilot, a musician, a beekeeper, just a few things. There go those bees again. His stories are written as standalone pieces in Stories from the Heart, Volume 2, but they're all part of his life story that he's working diligently on. And I think it's time for us to welcome Howard. Would you come up?
Thank you, Anna.
Okay, you are welcome.
The Battle of the Rhine by Howard Westley.
Can't hear you.
After the Battle of the Bulge in early 1945,
Speak right into the mic.
my outfit, the U.S. Army 34th Troop Carrier Squadron, no longer had to fly supplies from England to our forces at the battle line. The Red Ball Express that trucked supplies from the French ports took over that job. Ambulances from the field hospitals at the front now carried wounded soldiers to Paris, to the Paris base hospital, so we no longer had to fly the injured to hospitals in England either. The 34th was out of a job. So I signed up for a class at Oxford, a few miles from my base at Aldermaston, which is 15 miles west of Reading. Bad news. The entire squadron was transferred to the air base at Reims, southeast of Paris. There we received the CG-4A Waco glider and filled out our weight and balance forms. As we approached takeoff time for the assault landing across the Rhine River, we loaded 12 airborne infantry, 450 pounds of dynamite, and we took off as numbers 121 and 122 in a long train of gliders, each two being towed by a C-47, which is a DC-3 with wide doors, so we could carry a Jeep. We studied maps of the bend in the Rhine River and the terrain beyond. We were assigned a certain spot to try to land in, and were warned not to fly over the high anti-aircraft gun site, or ACAC as we called it, in the northwest from Wesel at the bend in the Rhine River. The first glider in the train was led at treetop level, but to stay out of the wake turbulence or prop wash, the craft following inch higher until we were about 1,500 feet. I watched one C-47 to our left that had no gliders in tow, flying level in the same direction. One moment later, it abruptly nosed down. One parachute came out the door before the plane crashed. ACAC, they were setting up a barrage, resembled a thick carpet below us, mostly aimed to explode at the lower level of the earliest tow planes or gliders in the train. I never did see the Rhine River. Was it haze or smokescreen? But then the message came to disconnect our tow rope. Where did our circling descent take us? Directly over the anti-aircraft gun battery we were supposed to avoid on that high ground. We could see the gunmen's faces and their German helmets clearly as they then swung their guns around, continuing to fire our glider after it passed over them. Why we didn't take any hits, I'll never know. Once on the ground, the Grogue parachute on the tail of the glider that should have slowed our rollout, I pulled the ripcord, the T-handle, to release the chute. It broke off in my hand. Luckily, we had space enough ahead to finish our rollout using foot brakes. As we all tumbled out of the glider, everyone tested their rifles. Mine wouldn't work, but one of the assault troops suggested that I take the safety off. We decided to leave our packs in the glider and come back for them later. But before the day was over, the German mortar fire had set the glider afire. So much for my water and food supply. I did have one chocolate bar in my pocket, besides some clips of ammunition. Then began the pitched battle. First Day at School by Howard Westley. In September 1926, I was 5 and a half, and my brother John Orion, who was almost 10, took me along to my first day of school. We parted at the front steps of the home school. The kindly gray-haired lady just inside asked me how old I was. When I replied 5, she took me into her classroom. She was the first grade teacher and school principal, and I never did get to go to kindergarten. My brother Ira had just turned 3 in July and went to kindergarten for 2 years before he was old enough for first grade. We used an ice box in the kitchen, which had to be restocked by the iceman. We put his sign in the window with a side marked 50 pounds or 25 pounds uppermost to signal the iceman how big a chunk of ice we wanted. He carried ice in 100-pound chunks and split them in half or in quarters by using his ice pick to make the chunks. This always left a few ice chips on the floor of the open back of the truck. He then lifted the big piece with his tongs to carry it on his shoulder, and if we were lucky enough to be there, we could take a few of the chips to suck on. One morning, when my sister Ruby and I were playing in our front yard, the Thompson Company truck labeled Thompson Company Ice, Coal, and Feed stopped across the street. We weren't supposed to go across College Avenue, a busy street connecting Glen Ellen with Wheaton. But that tempting prospect of some ice and the absence of anyone who would tell on me was irresistible. When I found no ice in the truck, as the delivery was for Mrs. Van Plu's chickens, it was chicken feed, I carefully looked down the street and dashed back across. The truck blocked my view up the hill, so I didn't see the car coming, and it hit me in the right hip. I felt as if I were spinning on my backside until I stopped in the gutter. Then Ruby shouted, "Mama, Mama, Howard's killed," as she ran into the house. My right hip was fractured, although luckily the old couple driving the car was going rather slowly. I remember seeing one or two blank columns in my first grade report card. I also remember Ruby bringing work home from school for me to do. One big mistake I made in that homework: 2 long numbers to be added together. I mistook for a multiplication problem. But for that absence from school, I might have skipped second grade, I think, saving me my problems of getting along with Mrs. Johnstone, the teacher, in second. Many times since then, I've told this story to emphasize to my young friends the importance of looking both ways before venturing across the street.
Thanks, Howard. That was fun.